We talked about those last week, number 1 and 2. So we'll start from there. So we'll go to 3 and 4. So on 3, those are vertical angles. Okay? And you set vertical angles equal to each other. So let's go ahead and blow this up a little bit more. So you say 17x minus 5 is equal to 15x plus 9. Okay, so if you're still struggling with your algebra, try to mirror what I do. Okay, because we have about half the class of all the classes that really struggle still with how to solve equations. So try to do what I do when I'm solving these things, okay? You don't have to. What I see when I come and help you is you have some weird ways of doing things. You don't write them exactly the same way, and then you kind of drop signs, or you put things together because you didn't have the x with it that should be with it because you didn't write it with it. So watch how I do this, and we'll get faster as we progress through the video here, okay? First of all, you have x's on both sides of your equal sign, so you got to get those together. You have to pick a side. It doesn't matter which side you put them on. Typically, we put them on the left, okay? But you don't have to. So I'm going to go ahead and subtract 15x from the right and the left. Another thing is don't remove your equal sign, and keep everything kind of in a nice, neat, organized column form. All right, so now we have 2x minus 5 equals positive 9. Now you put your x's on one side, so put your numbers on the other. So we got to add 5 to remove it from the left side, and we get 2x equals 14. And when you want to separate a number from a letter, typically we divide. So x is equal to 7. And that's how that works. It's nice and neat. The equal sign did not disappear. Everything's in the right positions. And then we move on to number 4. Okay? So on number 4, we have corresponding positions here. Notice that's an acute angle, less than 90 degrees. This is less than 90 degrees, so it's acute. So they have to be equal. So for solving purposes, you ought to be able to know if you're adding them together or setting them equal. Okay? So if they're the same angles, then that means they're equal. So what kind is this? This is corresponding. Corresponding means the same position. So we have 8 plus 9x is equal to 10x. Again, we have x's on both sides of the equal sign. We got to get them together. Since there's only one value of x on the right, I'll go ahead and move the other 9x over to that side so that the numbers will be on the left, and now we have 1x on the right. You do not need to write the 1. You need to understand that it's there. And that's it. Okay, going to number 5. Again, we have vertical angles. And the reason you need to know these words is when we do the proofs, you got to be able to write these theorems down. This is throughout the whole year, okay? We got to know these names. Notice these are both obtuse angles, so they have to be equal, but you already knew that vertical lines were equal, vertical angles. So 17x plus 6 is equal to 18x minus 1. Again, pick a side. I'm going to go ahead. I like to have positive variables, so I'm going to move the 17x to the right side. Because if I think about it, if I subtract it, that's going to give me a positive 1x on the right. You don't have to. You could have moved it to the other side and it would have been a negative. Write everything. Okay? So now we're going to put, since we moved x's to the right, we're going to move the numbers to the left. 7 equals x. Nice and neat. Easy to solve. All right, now we're just solving for x. We've not made the test yet. I'm not hinting. You might have to find the angle. So if you have to find the degrees, you'd have to plug the 7 back into one of the expressions. Okay? All right, so let's go to number 6. So we have They're alternating around this transversal, and they're on the outside of the two parallel lines. So that means they are alternate exterior angles. They're both acute, so they're equal to each other. So 65 is equal to 21x plus 2. We only have one value of x on the right, so let's move the numbers to the left side. And now you separate the 21 from the x by dividing, and x is equal to 3. The next page. All right, number 7. Again, they're alternating around the transversal, and they're on the outside of the parallel lines. So that is alternate exterior angles. So they're equal. They're both obtuse. They're both equal. So x plus 110 is equal to 105. We have the x, one value of x on the left side. So let's move the numbers to the right side. So we're going to subtract 110. And you're done. Keep your equal sign. Do not remove it. Put everything in column form so that's nice and organized. Your math students, learn how to be organized. It helps so you don't drop signs and letters. All right, number 8. Again, you have alternating and exterior angles. So they're equal. Those are both obtuse angles. Or those are both acute angles. Notice they're both less than 90. So they are equal. 8x plus 8 is equal to negative 1 plus 9x. And so, put your letters on one side, pick. So, again, I noticed that if I subtract 8 from 9, that'll give me a positive x on the right. Do not drop anything. Just pull everything down on each line. And now put the numbers on the left. So we're going to add 1. And we get 9 equals x. Looking at number 9. Here they're on the same side of the transversal. Notice that the bottom one is acute and the top one is obtuse. So if they're different, that means you have to add them together. So 16x plus 2 plus 6x plus 2. Add them together and set them equal to 180 if they're different angles. Now, what are they? If they're on the same side, they're either corresponding or they're consecutive. Corresponding means the same position. These are definitely not in the same position because they're not equal. So these are consecutive interior angles. Make sure you know the difference. Now we have both sets of x's on the same side of the equal sign. Please do not do this. Do not subtract 6x from 16x. If they're on the same side of the equal sign, you have to put them together. That's a positive 16, and that's a positive 6. We're not moving them across the equal sign, okay? We're not removing them. So you just put them together. So that's 22x. And the same thing with the 2's. They're on the same side of the equal sign, so put them together. So that's plus 4. And now we solve. So since we have one value of x on the left, we're going to move the 4 to the right. Keeping it all nice and neat. Separate the 22 from the x by dividing. And x is equal to 8. So your work should look just like this. Nice and neat. If you are a sloppy writer, knock it off. Start writing neater. Slow down and write nicer. Okay? Just because it keeps you from making silly errors. And it makes you look smarter. All right, number 10. Again, these are alternating and they're on the outside of the parallel line, so it's alternate exterior angles. They're both. Okay, so alternate exterior angles are equal. So 13x minus 3 is equal to 12x plus 5. I'm going to go ahead and move my x's to the left because that's going to give me a positive x. Keep everything in nice, neat form. So x's are on the left, now the numbers go on the right. And you're done. Unless they ask for the degree. Okay, number 11. They're on the same side of the transversal. They're both the same angles. They're both acute. So in order for them to be the same, they must be corresponding. Good job. So we set them equal. 26x minus 2 is equal to 25x. So since we have the x by itself on the right side, let's go ahead and move the 26x over there. You don't have to. If I'm going to do it differently here, if I move the 25x to the left so that I can have a positive x, I still have a minus 2 on the left side, but what's on the right side? And this is where some of you that struggle with algebra make a mistake. It's 0. 25 minus 25 is 0. Okay? But that's okay. You can do it that way, but don't drop your equal sign and don't make up something. So the minus 2, now we have x on the left. Let's add 2 to the right. And x equals 2. That's if you happen to find yourself in a position where you moved everything to the same side. That means that there's 0 on the other side. Okay. So let's go over to 12. These are on opposite sides of the transversal, so they're alternating, and they're inside the two parallel lines. So alternate interior angles. So they're both acute. They're equal to each other, so 13x plus 5 is equal to 83. So we have one value of x on the left, so let's move the numbers to the right. So we subtract 5. Keep everything nice and neat. Separate the 13 from the x. X is equal to 6. And again, make sure you're answering the question on the test. Do they just want the value of x, or are they asking for the degree? All right, so let's go to the next page. So number 13. All right, so what you could do here is you could draw the pieces that you have. We don't need this part down here, okay? You can just cross it out so you don't even look at it. And so you have two parallel lines cut by a transversal, and these are corresponding positions. Again, if you're not sure where the x plus 48 is on the test, ask me and I'll tell you, all right? So these are corresponding. And so that means x plus 48 is equal to 45. There's only one x term, so move the numbers to the right. And so we have x equals negative 3. Number 14. Why is that doing that? Is, I think these are corresponding angles. Again, on the test, if you're not sure where an expression goes, whether it goes to a one intersection or the other, just ask me and I'll tell you. I'll have that stuff figured out as we're starting the test. I'll go through it myself. But if you're still unsure and I haven't said anything, then ask and I'll tell you. All right, but I won't tell you what they are. So in this case, these are corresponding angles. So these go together. And so you say corresponding. And then we say, you notice they're both obtuse, so they have to be equal. 23x minus 3 is equal to 21x plus 9. Okay, so what I want to do is just spend a quick moment here for those of you who are struggling with algebra again. Try to keep everything in column form. I kind of say this throughout the video with the other classes. Try to keep everything in column form and don't drop your equal sign. It helps you keep everything nice and neat. Those of you who write sloppy, knock it off. Start writing, try to write neatly because you're making silly errors because you can't read your own handwriting. So what I noticed on this one is we have x's on both sides of the equal sign. So we need to get them together. So it doesn't matter which side you put them on. Just pick a side. I always like to make sure I end up with a positive x value, so I'm going to subtract the 21 to the left. And I keep everything nice and neat. That's 2x minus 3, and we have a positive 9 on the right. And if I put my x's on the left, I'm going to put my numbers on the right. So I'll put the plus 3 to the right, and I get 2x equals 12. And when we want to separate from our variable, we usually divide. So that's 6. X is 6 is the answer. All right. So we go to number 15. Again, at this point, if you're not seeing what you need to see, you can redraw the whole thing with what you've been given. So the 6x minus 7 goes there, and the 5x plus 5 goes in this place. And all I did was get rid of that middle parallel line. And so now you can see that, or should be able to see that these are alternating around the transversal, and they're inside the parallel lines. Okay, so alternate interior angles. So you set them equal to each other. So we have 6x minus 7 equals 5x plus 5. Again, you have x's on both sides of the equal sign. I'm going to move it to the left. So subtract 5x. We get x minus 7 equals 5, keeping everything in a nice, neat form vertically. We got the x's on the left, so let's add 7 to move the numbers to the right. And x equals 12. Again, on the test, you don't know if I'm going to ask you for the degree or if I just ask for x. I'm not hinting because the test has not been made yet. Okay? So just make sure you answer your questions. If it says it wants to know what the degree is, you'd have to substitute that 12 back in to one of the expressions and solve it. Okay? In this case, if we put it in here, 5 times 12 is 60 plus 5, that would be a 65-degree angle. Okay? So just watch on the test for what it is that we're asking for. Number 16. They are on the same side of the transversal. 130 degrees obviously is obtuse. But if the x plus 59 there, that's an acute angle. If they are not the same, you have to add them together and set them equal to 180. So even though you may not know that these are consecutive interior angles, you can still solve the problem. So you add these together. X plus 59 plus 130 is equal to 180. Please do not do this. Do not go, well, that's minus 59. That's wrong. Remember, when you add and subtract in an equation, you do it once on each side of the equal sign. So if they're on the same side, you just add them together. I got a positive 59 and a positive 130. So that's x plus 189 equals 180. And now we need to remove the 189. So we subtract it once on each side of the equal sign. And you're done. Let's move on. Page 4. Again, if the picture looks weird, redraw it. Get rid of the stuff you don't need. So I'll just draw it down here for you. We have that transversal and the top two parallel lines. So an x plus 72 and an x plus 120. So we got rid of all this other stuff here. And you should see they are on the same side of the transversal. One is obtuse and one is acute, which means they add up to 180. So x plus 72 plus x plus 120 is equal to 180. And those are consecutive interior angles. Okay. You have a 1x and a 1x. That makes 2x. They're on the same side of the equal sign. You just put them together. Same thing with the 72 and the 120. That's 192. You only do the opposite operation if you're going across the equal sign. So again, don't drop your equal sign. Make sure everything's nice and neat. So now we got one value of x on the left, so we need to move our numbers to the right. So that is negative 12. Separate the 2 from the x by division. X is negative 6. Who got that right? All right, those of you who finished it. Good. All right, number 18. Again, if you need to redraw it, we have two parallel lines cut by a transversal. So I'm just getting rid of all that junk there. So that's 13x, and that's 12x plus 10. If that helps, do it. Now notice we have two obtuse angles. So if they're both the same type, they're equal. So, and they're on the same side of the transversal, so this is a corresponding. So corresponding and consecutive are both on the same side of the transversal. Consecutive means they're different angles. Corresponding means they're the same. You have to remember that. All right, so since they're both obtuse, they're equal. 13x equals 12x plus 10. Got x's on both sides of the equal sign. So let's move it to the left. That's 1x equals 10. That's all you had to do. Again, it's practice. All right. 19. Again, if you want to redraw it, I have the top line and the bottom line cut by the transversal. So 17x is here, and 18x minus 5 is there. So we got rid of the middle one and those diagonal lines. So those are corresponding angles. It's hard to tell, but they're both acute, so they're both equal. So 17x equals 18x minus 5. So we have a single x term on the left, so let's move the 18 to that side by subtracting it. And that's a negative x then. Negative 1x. You all know that that's a negative 1 there. And we have a minus 5 on the right. Don't drop your minus sign. So how do we change a negative x to a positive x? You can either divide by a negative 1, or you can multiply by a negative 1. It's the exact same thing. Okay, so if we divide by a negative 1, that's a positive x and that's a positive 5. Okay. Number 20. So now we have same side, but they're both interior, so that means consecutive interior angles. One's obtuse and one is acute. So you add them together. 15x plus 5 plus 10x equals 180. Okay? They're on the same side of the equal sign, so put like terms together. So 15x and 10x is a 25x. 5 doesn't disappear. So now that we have our x's together, let's move the numbers to the right. 25x equals 175. So divide off the 25. X is 7. 7 quarters, $1.75. All right, 21. That's obtuse and that's obtuse. They have to be equal. So these are corresponding. They're in the same position. Corresponding angles. So they're both the same angle, so they're equal. So I have an x term by itself on the right, so let's move the 39 to the right to be with it. So 3 equals 1x. Done. Keep everything nice and neat, and it shouldn't be an issue. Okay? 22. Oh, must be on the other page. All right, next page. All right, 22. Again, you can redraw these if you want. So we have two parallel lines cut by a transversal, this angle and that angle. So they're alternating around the transversal. So they're equal, but they're on the outsides of the parallel lines. So you would say alternate exterior angles, okay? Well, that's 90 degrees. So they're equal. X plus 97 is equal to 90 degrees. Subtract the 97, so you put your numbers on the same side. X equals negative 7. Most of you are okay with the algebra stuff. Some of you are not. Some of you are flip-flops. Most of you are okay with, some of you are okay with the words, but not okay with algebra, and vice versa. You got to be good with both. 23. Again, we don't even need this line here. So you got two parallel lines cut by a transversal. So acute angle. They're both equal, and they're in the same positions, upper left, so they're corresponding. So they're equal to each other. 7x plus 5 is equal to 47. So you have one x term on the left, so let's move our numbers to the right. 7x equals 42. Separate the 7 from the x by division. X equals 6. Okay. 24. Pretty straightforward. These are both inside the parallel lines, but they're alternating around the transversal. So, alternate interior angles. They're both acute. So, 5x minus 5 is equal to 4x plus 6. Again, you have x's on both sides of the equal sign. You need to get those together. Doesn't matter which side you go to. I'm going to subtract the 4x to the left because when I do that, I see that that's going to give me a positive x. You don't have to. Rewrite everything. You're not saving any paper. It's already been copied. So we add 5 to the right to put the numbers together. X equals 11. All right, 25, excuse me. Is that in column 2? Oop, down here. 25. Find the slope of each line. All right, so now we start with some graphs. This is fairly simple. We're going to do rise over run. So if we start at the left point, we're going to rise 1, 2. That's positive 2. And we're going to run 1, 2, positive 2. So using rise over run, 2 over 2, that's going to equal 1. So your slope is 1 for that line. Up 1 over 1. Up 2 over 2, okay? Hard to see that blue. All right, 26. Again, if we start at the left point, we go down 1. That means negative 1. And then we run 1, 2, positive 2. So down 1 and run 2. Rise is negative 1, down 1. We run a positive 2, so your slope is negative 1/2. You must be great at this. I'm not asking you to just kind of remember it. No, I'm telling you, you must be great at finding the slope from a graph. Okay, it's not hard. Just rise over run. Okay, going to the next page. 27, same thing. This one's pretty simple here. You just go up 1 and over 1. So you rise a positive 1, you run a positive 1, so your slope is just 1. On 28, the left point here, we're going to go down 1, 2, 3, 4. That's negative 4. And then we run 1. So your slope is negative 4 over 1, or just negative 4. Easy, easy, easy. And the points were already picked for you. All right, find the slope of the line through each pair of points. So now we're doing y minus y over x minus x. If you're just not sure what to do all the time, which way to go, do it the way I do it. It doesn't matter how you do it, just get the right answer. So we have 4 minus that coordinate, negative 8. Not 4 minus 8, 4 minus a negative 8. Same thing with negative 19 minus 12. Change, that's 12 over a negative 31. So your slope is negative 12/31. And then you do that for the next 3 problems. 4 minus 13. Negative 3 minus a negative 18. That's negative 9 over, change, that's 15. You miss points if you leave it like this. Reduce by 3, you get negative 3/5. So that's your slope. That's what you should have. Okay, 31. Make sure you do y minus y. Don't go 1 minus that negative 13. Okay? It's y minus y. 1 minus 13 and 14 minus a negative 13. So that's negative 12 on top and 27 on the bottom. Do not leave it like that. They're both divisible by 3. So you get negative 4 over 9. So 18 minus a negative 6 and negative 4 minus 15. Change. That's 24 over negative 19. 19 is prime, so unless 19 goes into 24, you're done. So negative 24 19ths. Now find the slope of each line. Please don't screw this up if this is on the test. What's your slope? 1/5. What's the slope? Negative 2/3. That's it. So we're not trying to trick you with stuff. Just answer the question. All right. Next page. 35. Same thing. 4/3. What's the slope of that? First of all, you need to know what it is. If there's one letter, it's either horizontal or vertical. So visually speaking, you have to know if it's horizontal or vertical. The letter that is given is the axis that it goes through. In order to have a line go through the y-axis, that means they must be horizontal. Okay? So, and it's going to go through the number they gave you. So it's going to be down here at the bottom. Y equals negative 1. That's where it would be at. But what is the slope of a horizontal line? What's the slope of the floor? 0, hopefully. So that's the slope. If it's vertical, you better say your slope is undefined. Okay? Do not ever say, in all your future math classes, do not ever say there is no slope. Well, it's either 0 or undefined. And if you say no slope, we have no idea which one you're talking about. Okay? So never ever say that there's no slope. Everything has slope. All right, 37. Find the slope of the line parallel to the given line. Well, gee. What does parallel mean? Same slope. So 7/5, 3/2, 5/3, 1/2. Done. Those are all the slopes of the parallel lines to those equations. They're there just to make sure you're grasping what's going on. Okay. Now find the slope of the line perpendicular to the given line. Oh, there's an equation, x equals 2. So visually speaking, x equals 2 goes through the x-axis at 2. So that's the line. It's a vertical line. Okay? Well, what's the slope of that line? I just got done saying it. What is the slope of a vertical line? Undefined. So the perpendicular line is going to have a slope of, what's the slope of a parallel line? 0. Parallel line would be horizontal to that line. Horizontal lines are 0. All right, 42. So the slope of this line is negative 1/2. What's the slope of the perpendicular line? So flip it over and change the sign. So positive 2 over 1. If you just wrote it like that without circling the 2, I'm going to count it wrong. Tell me what the slope of the line is that I'm asking for. Okay? Somehow indicate it. So the slope of this line is 6. What's the perpendicular slope, everybody? Negative 1 over 6. Okay. Next page. Slope is 1/2. What's the perpendicular slope? Everybody. Negative 2. I swear to you, I'm going to give you so much homework if you don't participate. Now, 45. What's the slope of that line? You have to put it in slope-intercept form first. So what we're going to do is we're going to subtract x, and we get, don't drop that minus sign. Negative y equals negative x plus 1. That 1 can't go with the x. It doesn't have an x with it, so don't put them together. But now you have a negative 1 out in front here, so we divide everything by a negative 1, which we could care less about the y-intercept there. So that slope of that line is a negative 1 over negative 1, or positive 1. So the perpendicular slope would be negative 1. All right, 46. I don't know when. I wasn't recording, so oh well. Subtract 5x. Negative 4y equals negative 5x minus 20. Again, don't put those together. Divide off the negative 4. That's positive 5/4. So what is your perpendicular slope? All right, good. Negative 4/5. Hey, I just want you to be happy that you can get the right answer. Where is that happiness at? I want you to be able to I know it, I got it, I can answer the question. Instead of being like, I don't know what to do, it's stupid. I mean, why not be happy that you can do something, okay? Let's turn it around. So slope-intercept form of the equation of a line. All right, so first of all, we got to find the slope. So we have a point here, which happens to be your y-intercept. So you don't have to plug anything in on these, but beware, you're going to have to do it eventually. And we pick another point right here, so we do rise over run. Up 1 and over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So our slope is rise over run, 1 over 5. Our y-intercept is negative 5. You can leave it like that, or you could have written it like this, which would be better. Slope-intercept form of that line. Because we could see where it crosses the y-axis. Okay? 50. We're lucky because we can see the y-intercept again at positive 3. We just need the slope. Just pick 2 points. These are the easy ones because they're only 1 off from each other. Down 1 and over 1. So don't forget the negative. So negative 1 over positive 1 is just negative 1. So the equation is y equals negative 1x. Please understand that's just, there's a negative 1 out in front. And it goes through the y-axis at 3. Done. So again, these are easy problems. Don't make them more complex. But we keep adding certain things to it. So yeah, if you can't remember it, then we're in trouble. That's why we practice. All right, next page. 51, same thing. We can see where it goes through the y-axis. But you still have to get the slope. So you got to find 2 points. Here's one, and the y-intercept's the other one. So we go up 1, 2, 3, and we run 1, 2, 3, 4. So your slope is 3/4. And your y-intercept is 4. So that is the answer to 51. 52. Again, we can see the y-intercept. We'll use that point and find another point there. So we rise 1, 2, 3, and run 2. So our slope is 3/2. Our y-intercept is negative 3. Pretty simple? Okay. Now write the slope-intercept form of the equation in slope, given the slope and the intercept. Okay, this is, again, supposed to be easy. So y equals negative 3x plus 0. Make sure the negative is not part of your number. What?
For this one, should I be negative?
All right, correction. This should be y equals 3/2 x minus 2. Good job. Next one. Y equals negative 1/4 x minus 3. Again, this is just saying, hey, or 3, positive 3, sorry. Can't see it on my iPad. This is supposed to be where, do you know where these numbers go? You're just showing that you do. And for you to miss this, it tells us, okay, somehow you've not practiced enough. All right, so the next one. Y equals 9 halves x, and that's a positive 4, right? Is it hard to see up here? No, it's easy to see up here. I should look up here. All right, so in 56, y equals, the slope is 1. It's okay if you want to say 1x. That's just not the way you should write it. But I'm not going to count it wrong if you put a 1 in front of it, all right? And then we have a negative 3 for your y-intercept. So again, those are all your answers for those. We got time, so let's start on these. You're not given the slope. First thing you're supposed to always find is the slope. All right, so we just want the equation of the line that goes through those 2 points. So you need slope and intercept. They gave us the intercept right there. Now you could have substituted a point in to figure it out and you'd get the right thing, but you need to recognize when to save time. They gave you the y-intercept, positive 3. So now we got to find the slope. Slope is 0 minus 3 and 1 minus 0.
Is that only because there's a 0 in the x spot?
Yeah. So if I asked you to plot 0, 3, where are you going to be? On the y-axis. So anything on the y-axis is your y-intercept. So you get negative 3 over 1, or just negative 3. So y equals negative 3x, that's your slope, and it goes through positive 3. All right, so 58, it doesn't tell you the y-intercept or the slope. So we got to figure it out. So the slope is negative 2 minus a negative 4 and 3 minus a negative 5. Change, 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 change. So my slope is 1/4. So we write the equation y equals, and the slope again is 1/4. To find b, substitute a value. What? So substitute a number. It doesn't matter which number. Just pick one. Which coordinate. So I'll just use the first one, negative 5, negative 4. But please put them in the correct positions. Okay? So the y is negative 4. The x is negative 5. Okay? So negative 4 equals 1/4 times negative 5 over 1. So it's negative 4 equals negative 5/4. So we need to move across the equal sign. So you're going to have negative 4 over 1 plus a 5 over 4. It's positive 5/4 on the left side. Get a common denominator by changing the denominator, multiplying the top and bottom by 4. That becomes a negative 16 on top. Plus the 5 is negative 11/4. So your equation is y equals 1/4 x minus 11/4. Next page. Same type of thing. What do you notice? Yeah, which one's which? Yeah, 0,4 is the y-intercept. Right. So right here's our y-intercept. So let's get our slope. 4 minus 0, and 0 minus a negative 5. So 4/5. So y equals 4/5 x plus 4. Didn't have to do any work on that one, other than the slope. All right, 60. Give me a little more room here. Find the slope, or we do have the y-intercept again. They gave it to us, 0,5. Find the slope, 1 minus 5, and negative 2 minus 0. Negative 4 over negative 2, which is positive 2. So y equals 2x plus 5. Again, if you wanted to substitute the numbers, you can. You'll get the same answer. All right, and then we finally get to the last problems, which are the most difficult, but at this point, I think you're all good. So let's try it. We want write the slope-intercept form of the equation of the line described. Parallel to this equation. So that slope is negative 3/4. So what slope are we going to use? Negative 3/4. All right? So y equals negative 3/4. Why is this so thick? All right, y equals negative 3/4 x plus b. So we substitute 4, 2. Okay. Again, please put these in the correct positions. All right, so 2 equals negative 12 over 4, which is the same thing as negative 3, right? So if that's negative 3, we can add 3 to the left. Y-intercept is 5. So y equals negative 3/4 x plus 5. That's the equation of line going through 4, 2. It's parallel to the other equation. Their slopes are the same. Notice their y-intercepts are different.
There's like 2 and where did they?
All right, 62. Same type of thing. Your slope is negative 3/2. We're wanting parallel. So y equals negative 3/2 x. We keep the exact same slope for parallel lines. And now we substitute 2 and 2 for x and y. So 2 equals negative 6 over 2 is negative 3. So we add 3 to the left, and again 5 is b. So I want to see all of that information on your test. No work, no credit. Okay? Again, what is your slope of that line that they gave you? Negative 1. Okay, so you want the parallel slope, so y equals, again, negative x, or negative 1x, and substitute the values. So now we substitute your values, your x and your y values. So y is negative 2, x is 5, and now we solve. So negative 2 equals negative 5 plus b. Add 5 to both sides. So 3 equals b. Then rewrite your equation. So y equals negative x plus 3. And that's how you do the parallel line. 64. Same thing. Our slope is 2/5. So we want a parallel equation. So you use the same slope, 2/5 x. How do we find the intercept? By substituting x and y. So y is 1. X is negative 3. So do the calculation and finish it. So 1 equals negative 6/5 plus b. So add 6/5 to 1 on the left side of the equation, because it was negative on the right side. Common denominator is 5, so multiply top and bottom by 5. So 5 plus 6 is 11. Denominator is 5. Rewrite the equation. Y equals 2/5 x plus 11/5. All right, if you wanted to use point slope form. Anybody remember point slope form? We talked about it a little bit. I'm not going to confuse you if you don't remember it. Perpendicular. So if the slope of that line is negative 1/4, what is the perpendicular slope, everybody?
4.
Flip it over, change the sign. So 4 over 1. Write the equation, y equals 4x plus b. And again, substitute your x and y. Y is 4, x is 2. Solve it. So 4 equals 8 plus b. So subtract the 8. Negative 4 equals b. Rewrite the equation. (66) Same thing. Now, here we need to understand the slope of x equals 0. So there's one variable. That means it goes through that axis. It goes through the x-axis. Where? At that number. So it's basically it's a vertical line right here, which happens to be the same as the y-axis. Okay, so it's a line on top of the y-axis. Well, the slope of a vertical line is undefined. But we want the slope of a perpendicular line. Perpendicular to vertical is, what? Horizontal. What's the slope of a horizontal line, everybody? The slope of a horizontal line is 0. So never ever say something has no slope, because we don't know if you're talking about undefined slope or 0 slope. Okay? So because you have 0 for your slope, write your equation. Enter your 1 and your 5. And solve. What's 0 times 1? 0. And 0 plus b is just b, so b is 5. So y equals 0x plus 5, right? Except you don't need that. So your equation should be y equals 5. All right, so what does that really mean if you were to graph it? X equals 0 is the line on top of the y-axis. Y equals 5 is the line going through 5 on the y-axis. So that's 90 degrees. Those are perpendicular. All right, so those are the hard ones, but if it's just one letter, it just means it's either going through the x-axis or y-axis, and it goes through the letter they gave you. Okay, 67. Perpendicular to that line, that slope. So negative 3/5. What's the perpendicular slope? Everybody. 5 over 3. Hey, come on, man. You know the answer. Give it to us. Be happy you know the answer. So now you rewrite it. Y equals 5/3 x plus b. It's all repetition. Substitute the numbers in. And then solve, please. So we get negative 5 equals 5 over 3 times negative 3 over 1. So negative 5 equals negative 15/3. Negative 15/3 is the same thing as negative 5. So we're going to add 5 to both sides. So this goes through the origin. What's your equation? Y equals 5/3 x plus 0. But you don't need to say plus 0. All right. Oops. 68. Perpendicular. Everybody, what is the slope of the perpendicular line? 1 over 5. What do we do next? Substitute the values. Put them in the correct positions. And what is 1/5 times negative 5? Negative 5 over 5, which is what? That's negative 1. So we're going to add 1 to the left. Rewrite the equation. page. All right, so we have the given already given to us. All right. So both sets of lines are parallel according to what this says. So they went ahead and said that angle 3, well, I guess nothing else is given. So angle 3 is congruent to angle 11. How do we know that 3 and 11 are congruent? What positions are those, everybody? By this time, you should know these names. Yeah, you're not allowed to talk anymore. Corresponding. All right, and then we have angle 11 and 13. They say those two are the same. Alternate interior angles. Okay? And therefore, if 3 is to 11 and 11 is to 13, somebody else, why is 3 congruent to 13? Transitive property. Okay? So you had to get somewhere from 3 to 13. They're in different intersections. So you had to use another intersection to get there. So you're still struggling with these types of proofs. You have to figure out a way to walk around the picture. Okay, so that's why they did 3 and 11. Because then they knew 11 and 13 could go together. Okay? All right, let's take a look at the next one. Again, both sets of parallel lines are parallel. The measurement of angle 1 plus the measurement of angle 14, 1 and 14, they add up to 180. They're not equal. They add up to 180. That's what we're trying to prove. I'm sorry. So angle 1 is congruent to angle 11. How do we know that? Somebody else. Alternate exterior angles. So again, they have to get something showing the angle 1 and angle 14 add up to 180. So if angle 1 and 11 are the same, what do you know about 11 and 14? They're consecutive interior angles. So angle 11 and angle 14 are supplementary, right? That's what consecutive interior angles mean. And then notice they did substitution. They put angle 1 in for angle 11 on that last step. Substituted. Let's go to the next one. Now, they're saying M and N are parallel. You don't know that R and S are. We're trying to prove that. So angle 1 and angle 3 are congruent. That's given. Note they're not connected, so we got to walk around, and the only thing they gave us was angle 2. So what do we know about angle 2 and angle 1? Or, excuse me, angle 2 and angle 3? I can't use angle 2 and angle 1. Why? I can't use angle 2 and angle 1 because these two lines, we don't know if they're parallel or not. That's why it doesn't say angle 2 and angle 1. It says angle 2 and angle 3. So angle 2 and angle 3 are using the two parallel lines. How are they related to each other? Alternate interior angles. So we can say that because we know the two lines are parallel. So angle 2 is congruent to angle 3, alternate interior angles. Okay? And then, why is angle 1 congruent to angle 2? That's a transitive property. If 1 is to 3 and 3 is to 2, then 1 is to 2. That's a transitive property. And if 1 is congruent to angle 2, how are these two related? Alternate exterior angles. Converse theorem. Because they're not parallel, you had to first show the angle 1 and angle 2 were congruent to each other. So that's why we have that in the previous line. And if they are congruent, then by the converse theorem, those two lines have to be parallel. That's how that works. Next one. P and Q are parallel. So P and Q are parallel, but it doesn't say anything about R and S. So you can't say angle 1 and angle 3 are congruent because of alternate exterior angles. All right, so it does say that angle 2 and angle 3 are congruent. And we can use P and Q to show angle 1 is congruent to angle 2. Why is angle 1 congruent to angle 2? Yeah, those are corresponding angles. And now we have this. 2 is to 3 and 1 is to 2. This is the transitive property. So angle 1 is congruent to angle 3 by the transitive property. And if angle 1 is congruent to angle 3 by the alternate exterior angles converse theorem, R is parallel to S. All right, so that's just a visit of proofs. You do have quite a few proofs on your test, but you have a lot more of the other stuff on your test. All right, so go to the next one. There are all your answers. So take a picture of that.